Hey there, how's it going? Welcome to this thing. Today I want to talk about something that has bothered me for years now, and that is the Peanut Allergy stand-up comedy set. It's a popular set and it always seems to kill, which is why I assume that so many different comedians have dabbled in that topic area over the years. So because it's such a popular comedy topic, I wanted to take a real close look at it and assess it in way more detail than anyone was ever supposed to. Are all these comedians doing the exact same set? Is this a case of parallel thinking, where a lot of people have the exact same idea, they put it on paper, and then they end up having really similar sets? Or am I just a butthurt snowflake who doesn't like hearing jokes about things that pertain specifically to her? Probably. As a disclaimer, I want to clarify that I don't think joking about peanut allergies or allergies in general is inherently wrong. I think that comedy is a really cool outlet and it lets you take serious topics or even mundane topics and squeeze them for all they're worth and spit out some nuggets that you can giggle at in the middle of a bar on a Tuesday. The point of comedy is that it has to be innovative all the time in order to capture the attention of your audience. Peanut allergies is a topic that's really commonly tackled in comedy. And so what that means is that we can take all of the people who have done sets about peanut allergies and we can break them down and look at their components. Basically, we can collect data. So let's look at the data now. All of the comedians that I could find who did sets about peanut allergies are Amy Schumer, Louis C.K., Anthony Jeselnik, Lisa Lampanelli, Mike Birbiglia, Orny Adams, Ricky Gervais, Kevin James, Tim Steves, Dimitri Martin, and Jim Jeffries. So those are some big names. In my search, I only focused on peanut allergies, so I didn't include anybody who had sets on gluten allergies or lactose intolerance, and that's because I don't have any of those issues, and therefore I don't care about them. So if you were here expecting that, piss off. I don't care. My next step was to transcribe the transcripts of each set and then look at the beats of each joke. I made a table of components that appeared commonly within each of these sets, and from there I can check off which comedian used what component. Here are the common components that I noticed. Airplane. This means that the setting of the joke was on an airplane. Pretty simple.
I was on the plane, I was writing jokes, and I was eating a chicken salad sandwich on walnut raisin bread.
I was flying Heathrow to JFK just before Christmas, right?
Like, you ever been on a plane lately and they go like this? They go, on today's flight, we will not be serving peanuts, as there's a person on the flight with a severe peanut allergy.
War. This means that the settings of the joke was in a war zone. So these were the only two setting-specific components that I found.
Imagine if we had to fight a war now, have an honest-to-God fight for freedom, have a draft? Can you imagine? Have a draft? Most of the kids are allergic to peanuts, for Christ's sakes.
In the air is a component where the set contains a joke about airborne peanut allergies, and it's often said like,
Actually, she'll have a reaction, even if there are nuts in the air.
And one tosses out a peanut shell and the dust from that shell. Works its way through the air and latches onto a nasal hair and shimmies its way up. I will explode!
What do you think's gonna happen if someone next to you eats a fucking peanut? You think peanut particles will get in the fucking air?
Supposed to Die is a set component that contains a joke about how natural selection hates me personally as a person.
Maybe if touching a nut kills you, you're supposed to die.
Spread a jar of Jif all over his ugly, splotchy body. He'll either break out in hives and be cured instantly, or he'll be dead, and either way's fine with Lisa Lampanelli.
And if being near a nut kills you, do we really want that in the gene pool? I mean...
Remorse is an interesting component because in the joke, they're actually saying sorry for saying the joke. So...
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. Jesus. I have a nephew who has that. I'd be devastated if something happened to him.
You know who doesn't like this story? Are people with nut allergies. And you know who does like this story is everyone else. And I feel genuinely conflicted about that, because there's like almost 1,000 people in this room together right now, and about 997 of us are like, ha-ha, nuts in the air.
And then 3 of us secretly are like, that's my life. You know, and I don't...
Direct fuck you to everyone with nut allergies. Jim Jeffries really owned this category.
While I'm at it, people with peanut allergies can fuck off and all.
Sabotage. So this is a weird one because it's in the joke that the comedian sets up that they would like to murder the person with the peanut allergy. And I get it, it's a joke, right? Like, it's not that specific, but also it's homicide. So, like...
What I do now before I fly, I have a shower, and then I rub myself all over in nuts, just in case. Because then they go, oh, can I have any nuts? I go, oh, no, not nuts. A lady getting on, so allergic, she'd die. I go, yeah, not a problem, mate. Lady gets on, sits down, starts blowing up like a frog, going, right. I'm going, what's the matter? I'm touching her all over. I go, what's the matter? What's the matter, love? And she goes, oh, nuts, right? And dies, and I go, who's been eating nuts?
So you know what I do? Every time when I'm on a flight where they serve peanuts, what I do is I get 6 or 7 peanuts, and I wedge them down the back of the fucking seat. And if someone ever dies, I'll be the first person to say, I was wrong.
Not real. So this is the one where people talk about how allergies are exaggerated and not real. And interestingly enough, this is the one that I think advocates have problems with. So why a lot of people get mad about peanut allergy jokes is the insinuation that it's a not real thing.
Okay, mothers, PSA number 1. There is no such goddamn thing as a peanut allergy.
Soft. So this is the component where comedians are looking for examples as to why the youth and younger generation of today is so much softer than we used to be because we used to drink out of garden hoses and die of influenza, you know, good things.
We have gotten soft. We have gotten soft. Watch this. What are you allergic to? Nothing! Nothing! Gluten wouldn't take down our generation. We're not allergic to things like peanuts.
We're soft, though, aren't we? Aren't we getting soft? Wasn't it harder going previous, like...
EpiPen. So, as expected, EpiPens, or epinephrine injections, which are used if you're in anaphylactic shock, they make appearances in some of these jokes, although comedians don't seem to Google the instructions for how to use an EpiPen. For one, it's injected into your leg.
If a fork ever touches a nut in this restaurant and I use that fork, you gotta jab an EpiPen into my chest because I am on my way to the afterlife.
And also, it alone won't save your life. Like, you can't just take one and then, like, go to Arby's. You know, you have to go to a doctor and see them.
It's a nut allergy. And if he has a reaction, his mom has to spike him in his leg so he doesn't die.
So as you can see, there are beats that are repeated over and over in different sets whenever this topic comes up. But there are 3 comedians who don't contain any of the components that I just went over. So let's talk about them. Now first, in 2013, we had Amy Schumer, who I congratulate for writing an original joke. So Amy didn't include any of the components of the traditional set inside of her joke. But I will say this, it wasn't really a full set, so the joke that she said was just kind of a 1-sentence joke within a set about a completely different topic. So because of that, I don't know that I count it as a nut allergy set. In addition, the entire premise of the joke was that nut kind of sounds like testicle, because we say testicles are nuts. So I don't know that I enjoy it, but it definitely is a joke on its own, and it doesn't use any of the components. Second is ever edgy Anthony Jeselnik.
We just found out my little brother has a peanut allergy. A peanut allergy, which is very serious, I know. But still, I feel like my parents are totally overreacting. They caught me eating a tiny little bag of airline peanuts, and they kicked me out of his funeral.
And I think what Jeselnik does really well is he's really good at sniffing out trends in comedy and then twisting them. And so for him, it seems like he also has seen that these components are readily available. And so he's setting himself up to go towards those components because he knows you'll be feeling that as well. And then instead of going there, he's flipped it. Lastly, we have Dimitri Martin. Now, full disclosure, he's one of my favorite comedians. And his version of a peanut allergy set happens to be my favorite version of all of them. It might be because we have some camaraderie, and you'll see in a second what I mean by that.
If I eat a peanut, I die. So that's... I can't see any good use for that. I've never really seen a benefit that comes from that allergy, you know. Unless, I don't know, if I were depressed, if I had a really rough stretch, I don't need a gun or a bridge or, you know what I mean? I could just go to a 7-Eleven, really, just pop in there and just grab a Reese's peanut butter cup. I'm not paying for it because I'm gonna kill myself, so just grab the peanut butter, ram it in my mouth, and just dead right in front of the guy at the register.
Unlike other peanut allergy jokes, this one doesn't really punch down at all, and it's because he's coming from the lens of having had a peanut allergy, and so he instead focuses on the fact that my brother has reiterated to me many times, that suicide is so much easier when you have a nut allergy. Thinker. So now that we've seen the people who are a little bit more original with the joke, let's look back at the major components. So most of the components we've talked about are funny, right? But are they original? The three most repeated components on the list are airplane, in the air, and supposed to die. So let's look at those more specifically. Now the setting, I understand. An airplane is the only place where you lose your constitutional right to be an asshole to somebody and then leave the situation immediately. Like instead, you're stuck with them. You're completely confined. It's like you paid money to be trapped inside of a bunker with a bunch of strangers, and it's super uncomfortable in the bunker, and you only get one beverage and like one bag of snack. So instead, you have to sit there, and instead of getting the snack you wanted, you might get something else because there's someone with an allergy, and of course that might piss you off. So in those situations, I get why that might be the first thing on someone's mind when they're writing a comedy set, because that's the reality they're facing in the moment when they have the most time to think about it. The repeated components that really interest me are in the air and supposed to die. And that's because they're very content specific, the language in them is very specific, and the very first versions of each of those were extremely popular jokes. The first version of the Supposed to Die set was done by Louis C.K. in his special Oh My God, which was done in 2013. I'll be honest, Louis C.K. wasn't always my favorite comedian, and really isn't at this point at all. But the whole premise of this set, the whole setup, was that he was listing bad thoughts and bad ideas that he knew he shouldn't have or knew he shouldn't do, and sending them away, which is ironic when you think about what ideas he probably should have added to the list and didn't, and did anyway. Anyway, but if we look at just the joke alone, nothing about the person, right? I really enjoyed that set. I really thought it was funny. It was really fresh. Actually, when it first came out, my dad, he recorded it to his DVR, and anytime I came home from college, he would play that set as I was coming in the door. So the first thing I would hear was Louis C.K. shouting at me that people with nut allergies are supposed to die. Was that an odd form of mental warfare to start with your 19-year-old daughter? Probably, but it was still a funny joke. You know, it was still good. It was fine. It was fine. It was really fine. So with each new comedian tackling it and telling a similar version of the same joke, I realized I wasn't laughing at that comedian's new version. I was laughing because it would remind me of Louis' version of the joke. And in my opinion, that joke was best delivered by Louis. Now, maybe that's not true. Maybe it's just because I saw his version first that I liked it first. But either way, anyone who had seen Louis C.K.'s extremely popular version would be comparing every new iteration to that version. Mike Birbiglia's version of the peanut allergy joke in his special Thank God for Jokes in 2017 made me laugh hysterically the first time that I saw it. I think Mike Birbiglia's version is doing something that other iterations of this joke aren't. Mike Birbiglia sets up his joke with the first half being the story of him on an airplane encountering someone with a nut allergy. Now, looking at how he uses it, he takes that really familiar first half and applies it to his thesis in the second half, which is about how comedy needs to be about something. I think the fact that the set is familiar actually helps his thesis, because he's taking something that you might have heard before and using it to strengthen his commentary on the need for comedians to have a subject to talk about. Truly, his version of the in the air joke is a set that he's put within a set to make a meta commentary about comedy sets. That's big. Mike Birbiglia is not the only one to talk about the audience reaction to his peanut allergy set. In fact, Ricky Gervais, he also talks about the audience reactions to his peanut allergy set, but they talk about them very differently. Mike Birbiglia talks about the audience's reaction to his joke and his own reaction to humor in terms of its usefulness in dealing with things that are tougher to deal with. So a kid brings him an EpiPen to have it signed. And in that scenario, he's showing how that child is gaining something from having heard this comedy set. Now, in contrast, Ricky Gervais is talking about how his own freedom of speech might be infringed by the people who watch his comedy. And Ricky Gervais talked about how saying a joke isn't nearly as bad as the thing that he's joking about. So two very different lenses here. One is talking about comedy as a coping mechanism, or comedy in places where comedy isn't always seen. And the other one is talking about his own personal freedom to say jokes about a specific topic. Yet both of them are using the exact same setup. The in the air joke is within there, and they're using basically the same premise. So forgetting about the context of the joke or the thesis that each comedian was trying to come up with, we have to remember that we've heard the wording of the joke, the wording of in the air, over and over and over again. First from Birbiglia, then from Ricky Gervais, then from Kevin James. Bet you didn't know that Paul Blart does stand-up, but he does. And then lastly, from Jim Jeffries, just this year. So after all this time, does it start to grow stale, maybe? And does it lack the originality that Mike Birbiglia had when he first crafted that version of the joke with his overarching thesis in mind? If you had to compare it to something, it's like listening to a high school symphony orchestra perform Come On Eileen by Dexy and the Midnight Runners, right? Like, it sounds like Come On Eileen. But if I wanted to hear Dexy and the Midnight Runners, I would just listen to Dexy and the Midnight Runners. And this is coming from somebody who not only arranged a version of Come On Eileen for a symphony orchestra to play in high school, but I conducted it and posted the video to YouTube where it has like a good amount of views. Time has passed, mistakes have been made, and I realize now that my senior year was unnecessary. Just as it's unnecessary to hear Jim Jeffries do a Birbiglia joke, sweatier, angrier, and way more out of breath. The last thing I want to touch on in this section is Jim Jeffries himself, because although he's mentioned in the air section, I think it's important to remember his show didn't come out in the past. It came out this year. And not only did he use the in the air set, but he actually used multiple other components from other jokes as well. In fact, the only thing that he did that hasn't been done before is he just said, fuck you, to all of the people with peanut allergies. So what that adds to his thesis versus something that's so well crafted like Birbiglia's version of the joke, I don't know. And how you can write that set and not research or not realize that you would be compared to these other comedians who have done such great stuff with the same topic, I don't know. It just baffles me, especially coming from somebody who's had such a strong history of making really good stand-up shows in the past. I was disappointed, to be honest, to hear the exact same joke done in a more stale way than I've heard in the past. And unfortunately, it describes a lot of the show, but we won't have time to get into that. I have a lot of opinions about intolerant, and I think it will frame me as being an intolerant person, so I shouldn't say anything. So after all of this work that you, for some reason, sat through and watched me talk about, what is my point? Let me clarify. I don't think that this is plagiarism. And I don't think that this is even an example of a hidden memory. Just so you know, a hidden memory is basically when a comedian hears somebody say a joke maybe once somewhere, and then later on they accidentally rewrite the exact same joke without realizing that they're committing plagiarism. They just think it's something that they themselves thought of. But I don't think that's what we're seeing here. I truly think that blatant joke stealing is rare and honestly probably very extinct at this point, especially with the fact that comedians are being recorded and their videos are being shared on, YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook and Quibi or something. I don't know. Does anyone know what that platform is? I think what's happening here is a true case of parallel thinking. It's a situation where just everybody thinks of the same topic And really, how many different ways can you talk about a peanut allergy? But anyway, do I think joking about peanut allergies is wrong? No. But do I think that maybe if your version of a peanut allergy set doesn't bring anything new to the conversation, that you should retire it? Yeah. I mean, what's the point of doing somebody else's set? Even if you didn't copy it on purpose, even if you didn't plagiarize it, once you find out that other people have the same set as you and they've been doing it since before you were, why even keep going with it? Like, I get it, competition is good in any field, right? And sure, maybe you finish your set, you realize somebody else has a similar one, and you think, you know what? Sure, I'm okay with contending with the fact that my version of the set is going to be compared to that version of the set because I think mine is better. That's fine. But consider what the audience hears whenever they hear these sets constantly going on. Your audience is getting bored of these stale perspectives on the exact same topic. So if that means that we're done with talking about peanut allergies and comedy forever, so be it. You know, I guess we'll have to take that bullet. But also, what do I know? Because I'm just a lady that likes to make spreadsheets and sometimes says funny things at an open mic night to 10 people. Am I an expert? No. But did you watch this whole thing? Yeah, you did. So, it was a silly one now. Bye.